What is up, heroes? This is Midnight Zero, and welcome to my Week 6 UCL team building battle. I am, of course, coach of the Chicago Muse, and this week we are going up against the Quebec Quagsires, coached by Jeff. And first impressions, you can see his team on the right, Gliscor through Behem, and it's kind of like a very bulky team. A team that typically is like similar in philosophy to my sorts of teams. Teams that can take a hit and then return a lot of damage. So I wasn't really sure how to go about this battle because I can't rely on, like one or two Pokemon that very clearly deal with a lot of his team. So at first I wasn't immediately threatened. Obviously he's got a really good synergy with his Pokemon. If you'll notice, he's got Politoed and then Kingdra. Mega Aggron benefits from the rain a lot too. Beartic has Swift Swim. Armaldo has Swift Swim. Pelipper can benefit from Hurricanes. So yeah, there's actually a lot of synergy with his team, although in previous weeks he's only brought Politoed once, so I've been surprised by how little he's actually taken advantage of that. But looking at his teams, he almost always brings Gliscor, he almost always brings Mega Aggron, he loves Sableye, and he also really likes to bring Exploud. And other than that, he's pretty much brought either Sneasel or Venusaur or Pelipper or Primeape. Yeah, or Sylveon. And those are the Pokemon I'm, expecting to see for the most part. I definitely expect to see Sneasel or Sylveon, something to get rid of Mega Altaria, because he's got some strong Ice types and some strong Fairy types. Well, just one Fairy type, really. And looking at his team, though, I was thinking, okay, he's definitely going to bring Mega Aggron. Strong Steel type that can take on a physical Mega Altaria set. So, what deals with that really well? My Suicune, and we're going with the same set as we did last week. Sorry, it's nothing too incredibly special, although I invested a lot in special defense. If you look at his team, he's only got a few physical attackers. He's got Gliscor, if you even consider that much of an attacker, his Sneasel, and his Primeape and Mega Aggron. Maybe his lower tier Pokemon like Armaldo and Beartic, but they're lower tier for a reason, so I'm not incredibly worried about them. And if you look at the calcs, Mega Aggron does, I think, max of 15% to this Suicune. And I definitely want to be able to take a whole bunch of special hits. This thing can take on Kingdra, not so much Sableye. It can take a hit from Exploud and do some damage. After a Calm Mind, it takes on offensive Venusaur with Life Orb. So, this is a bulky Suicune, and it's going to be able to wall a lot of things. That being said, I need to be careful to not overwork it. And that's why, you'll see a lot of the rest of my members of my team are, there to take a hit for Suicune or to potentially help it set up. So, Suicune can be a huge defensive pivot, spreading burns, building up, residual damage. The main game plan is to build up residual damage while forcing switches for hazards and, doing little bits of damage with burns or hits from Scald or Thunderbolt or something like that, and then having Mega Altaria sweep at the end. Hopefully we can set up for that. But if not, almost all of my team has some sort of offensive presence and could easily pick up 1 or 2 kills each. And obviously, if each Pokemon gets at least 1 kill, that will lead to a victory for me. So I'd be fine with that too. So yeah, Scald, Calm Mind, Sleep Talk, and Rest. Pretty standard. Nothing much to explain there. The calcs are just maximum bulk, so there's nothing specifically fine-tuned with the EVs. Moving on to Mega Altaria, you'll notice it's a little bit different. Normally my ability to start is Natural Cure, but this week it's going to be Cloud 9 because if he brings that Politoed, I can actually use Cloud 9 to my advantage. It negates the effects of weather. It doesn't get rid of weather, so there's a big difference. So if Politoed brings up rain and my Cloud 9 Altaria is in, then he's not going to get an extra boost on his Scald or Hydro Pump from that rain. Or if I'm up against Kingdra won't get a Swift Swim boost. So it's really important also that speed is determined at the beginning of each turn. So I could Dragon Dance up a turn or two and be faster than Kingdra and Mega Evolve. And on the turn I Mega Evolve in return, I'll be faster than him because Swift Swim will not have activated yet, and I could KO that. So I'm actually looking to do that quite a bit because unless he specs Ice Beam, which does around 80 to 100% of damage on my Mega Altaria, I can actually take Choice Specs, Hydro Pumps, and Scalds, and he can't really hit me with Outrage. And if he goes for Outrage, and he's, either Life Orb or something like that, I can Mega Evolve, and that's a super risky move on his part, because if I Mega Evolve and go for Return, he's dead. So yeah, I was looking also for potential support moves like Fire Blast or Earthquake. And really, Return only does like maybe 10% less on the Pokemon that Fire Blast would do more. And I really want Dragon Dance and Roost, of course. But Return after a Dragon Dance OHKOs a lot of his team. Like, I mean a lot of his team. At 248 attack, which seems like, oh, you know, you just threw a ton in attack and left. It's actually very specific. I one-hit KO Choice Specs X-Cloud, which is what he's always run on X-Cloud, after Stealth Rock. This is before a Dragon Dance, too, by the way. I one-hit KO Politoed at +1, and then I two-hit KO Sylveon without any boost. So, yeah, this Mega Altaria can put in damage, especially if Pokemon have been chipped away at. I'm pretty sure I OHKO everything at +1, except for Mega Aggron, of course. After most Pokemon are like below 75 or 80%. So hazards plus chip damage are going to be super helpful in this game. And the last move I decided to fill with Heal Bell because I feel like he's going to bring in Sableye on this and try and Will-O-Wisp me a lot. And if he Will-O-Wisps me, I actually beat Sableye one-on-one. My Return does well over 100%. And so if he Will-O-Wisps me, I'll actually be able to out-recover stall him and actually win that battle too. But of course I can always just, you know, keep setting up. It would be kind of problematic if a Sableye has Foul Play, but beyond that, this takes Sableye on one-on-one, which is really nice. So moving on to the next Pokemon, we got Yazawa Nico, my Jirachi, not running a Scarf set though. In general, his team is pretty slow, with a few like notable exceptions like Sneasel or Primeape. And, you know, obviously he's got access to Swift Swim, so I got to be able to watch out for Kingdra or Beartic, which reach well over 400 speed. But beyond that, they're pretty slow, so I didn't really think it was necessary to run a Choice Scarf set. And instead I went with the Expert Belt set, because there are a lot of Pokemon that resist both Altaria and Suicune, and one of those is Venusaur. And even though Suicune can take on Venusaur if necessary, I don't really want to play around with that. And so I have access to Iron Head and Heart Stamp. Iron Head is to deal with Sylveon, and to, in general, flinch. It's stronger than Heart Stamp, and in addition to being Stab. And Heart Stamp deals with Primeape really well, Venusaur really well, and can hit a lot of his, you know, his Steel types like Mega Aggron for neutral damage too. So that's pretty important. What are some other things? Icy Wind is to hit Gliscor, and just to lower the speed of anything that wants to come in. You know, maybe a Sneasel. He likes to run Choice Scarf Sneasel, so maybe that could help out with slowing that down a bit. Or literally anything he wants to switch in. If, you know, it's going to get a speed decrease, that could help something else KO it. So it's a great support move. And then lastly, Moonblast. I was trying to look for that fourth move. I was debating Healing Wish, but in the end I decided Moonblast because I feel like he's going to want to bring in Sableye on this. Especially if I try and play like I'm Scarf. I go for Heart Stamp and Heart Stamp again, and then he brings in Sableye, expecting me to like be locked into Heart Stamp. And then Moonblast does, I think, 85 to 100%. So I actually calculated it, and if he switches in and goes for Prankster Calm Mind, and my Moonblast will do at least, I think, 55 to 60%. And then if he Calm Minds again, the Moonblast will do at least 40%. So I'm pretty sure it's like almost guaranteed. Well, I don't remember the calc exactly, but I am guaranteed to beat Sableye one-on-one, even if he tries to use Prankster Calm Mind to beat out my Moonblast. But Moonblast will beat Sableye, which is awesome. What else? That's just about it. Jirachi, hopefully, you know, pick up some damage on whatever it needs to. And moving on to the next I should EV specific things. So 120 special attack allows me to 2-hit KO specially defensive Gliscor with Icy Wind, and 92 attack at least allows me to 1-hit KO Primeape after Stealth Rock with Heart Stamp, and allows me to 3-hit KO physically defensive Venusaur, and I have like a 94% chance of 2-hit KOing offensive Venusaur. So yeah, and the rest went into bulk because every mon appreciates bulk. Moving on to Heatran, I needed something that hit Mega Aggron harder, and in general, Heatran can do pretty well against the team. I also need another Sylveon check, because Spec Sylveon does some work against Suicune too, so I wanted this. Obviously, resists Psyshock and Hyper Voice really well, and hits back hard with Flash Cannon. I think this Heatran, because it has 156 special attack, it 2-hit KOs Cleric, which is like generally bulky, but mostly defensively bulky Sylveon, but it's like a standard Smogon set, so I'm expecting to see that. if he's going to run that set. He's run Calm Mind in the past, and he's also run Cleric set before, so this obviously destroys Calm Mind set. But other than that, Lava Plume spreads burns. It's kind of a safer move to run, but also this is also my Stealth Rock setter, so I hope to force some switches, especially on something like Sylveon, and get my Stealth Rock up early, but I don't know when I'll be able to bring a Heatran in particular because of, you know, his water spam in general. But I also have Overheat in case I'm against something and I don't want to switch anything in, or I don't want to sack anything, and I'm okay with, you know, sacking the turn after. If he's brought in Mega Aggron, I think this does a minimum of 85% to maximum special defense Mega Aggron. So, like, if he's already switched in, things have taken chip damage, Overheat can finish off a lot of his Pokemon if absolutely necessary. Whereas Lava Plume does, like, you know, good, safe damage and allows me to retain momentum because I don't have to switch out after Overheat because of the special attack drops. I was debating whether or not to go with Balloon or Leftovers, but because he might get up rocks, and he likes to almost every game with Gliscor, if not Gliscor, probably Armaldo, but so I'll be switching a lot, and especially if I have Overheat, and I didn't want to be taking residual Stealth Rock damage all the time and limiting the number of turns I have to switch in, so I figured Leftovers instead. And in reality, if I'm up against Mega Aggron and I can take it out with Overheat, I will, and if not, I'm not going to take it on. I'll switch into my Suicune, which, like, completely walls it. Same goes for Gliscor, and those are the only things that I really expect to know Earthquake. If his Venusaur knows Earthquake, which has been a thing in the past, my Jirachi still takes it on, so yeah. Also, Venusaur typically runs HP Fire, and Heatran just completely walls Venusaur, unless it's running Earthquake, of course, and if that's the case, then my Zapdos walls it. And also, if Sableye is going for Will-O-Wisp, I can get a safe Flash Fire boost from that, so that would be really nice. And yeah, the speed is so that I outspeed X-Cloud, because that thing puts in work. Choice Specs X-Cloud is surprisingly strong. What else? I 2-hit KO, max special defense Aggron after rocks with Lava Plume. I also 2-hit KO X-Cloud after rocks with Lava Plume. I 2-hit KO max Speed F Venusaur with Lava Plume. I almost OHKO it with Overheat after rocks. I 3-hit KO specially defensive Ampharos, which is important because it can't rest talk on me. And I OHKO Armaldo after rocks with Flash Cannon, which is really helpful because that's his only rapid spinner. Other than that, he's got Pelipper for defog, but he doesn't really have much strong hazard control on his team. I also OHKO Beartic after rocks, and I OHKO it with Overheat before rocks. So yeah, Heatran, a huge offensive presence on my team. Hopefully, you know, putting in damage. Hopefully can take out Mega Aggron and set up for a Mega Altaria sweep. Next Pokemon is my Zapdos, Minami Kotori, and it's my specialty defensive set from, you know, week 1. Maximum special defense. It actually allows it to take on Venusaur pretty well because Life Orb Venusaur does around 35 to 45% with Sludge Bomb, and so I can actually roost off and Thunderbolt even though I can't Toxic it. This is also helpful for Sylveon and some of his other Pokemon that are susceptible to Toxic that I wouldn't actually be able to hit very directly. It's also helpful against Kingdra and Politoed because it's specially defensive, of course. Even though it's specially defensive, though, it still takes hits from some physical attackers. It takes around 80% from Mega Aggron's Avalanche and hits back for about 50%. In general, this Zapdos does 45 to 55 or so % on just about anything that comes in on it, unless it's resisted. And that sort of chip damage helps set up for Heatran Lava Plumes, Jirachis, you know, Heart Stamps, etc. And, you know, in the end, of course, a Mega Altaria sweep. Also, this is my form of hazard control, and this, in that it's so specially defensive, is a way for me to kind of take some pressure off of Suicune. Not as, like, as literally the defensive force. Other than that, you know, I don't really have any dedicated walls on my team. So yeah, this helps take some special hits, so Suicune isn't taking all the hits, and makes him have to predict which specially defensive Pokemon I'm going to switch into, and that could affect his move, especially because he likes to use Choice users. He likes to bring Choice Scarf Sneasel, Choice Banded Primeape, Choice Specs Sylveon potentially, or Choice Specs Kingdra, Choice Specs X-Cloud, so Choice Specs Behemoth. Like, there are a lot of choice users on his team, and he's brought a lot of them in the past. So if he has to make one of those decisions, that helps me out a lot. So yeah, that's about it for this. The 248 HP is just so I have an odd number of HP. It helps out with how Pokemon rounds, and the rest goes into defense, so I can take, hits just a little bit better. And the last Pokemon is Nishikinomaki, of course, Liepard, my failsafe, Focus Sash, Liepard with Thunder Wave. Basically, if Kingdra gets out of hand, if Beartic gets out of hand, if Sneasel gets out of hand, Primeape gets out of hand, any of his fast Pokemon are just wreaking havoc on my team, I can go and for last measure, just Thunder Wave it, and so something outspeeds it and can KO it. I've got Encore if he tries to set up on any of my Pokemon, or if I'm going to die, I can Encore him into a move so that I know which Pokemon I can switch in safely, which is really helpful for something like Mega Aggron, which gives, Zapdos or trouble, but yeah, it'll help with easing prediction, I guess. Knockoff is helpful in that he runs a lot of choice users, and that's where they get a lot of their power, a lot of their use. He likes to run leftovers on a couple Mons. If I can catch Gliscor before its Toxicorp activates, that would be incredible. But in general, Liepard doing its usual support thing. Thunder Wave to paralyze, Knock Off to get rid of items, Encore to ease prediction and lock enemies into moves, like Sableye in particular, because my Prankster outspeeds his. And then, when they do switch after they've been paralyzed or after they've been Encored, I can get switch momentum with U-turn. And because I'm really not looking to do any damage, I spent a lot of my stat investment, my EV investment, in bulk. The 148 speed you do see is to reach 285, which allows me to outspeed, I think, Venusaur, so I can knock off its item potentially, or U-turn out of there after knocking it off. So yeah. Oh, that's another thing. I outspeed a lot of his team with this, so that after I Encore them into a certain move, and I want to U-turn out to see if they switch or not, I outspeed all of their Mons if they decide to stay in and don't die in the process. And I know exactly what move they'll be going for, so I can switch into some Mon that I know can tank whatever hit's about to come. So yeah, the rest of the bulk allows it to live some hits surprisingly. It lives a lot of his physical attackers surprisingly well, which is what I expect to be switching this in on, and Thunder Waving potentially, because those are typically his faster Pokemon. So yeah, it should be an interesting match. I've watched a lot of his matches, and he definitely knows what he's doing, but I've been surprised by the lack of rain. A super hardcore rain team could be the end of my match here. That could be really threatening. Overall, I think Sneasel is going to be a bit of a problem if he brings it and plays it really well. Kingdra could be a bit of a problem, and if I don't get rid of it early, Mega Aggron could be. But beyond that, it should be good. I'm really going to be playing carefully with my Suicune because I don't want its leftovers to get knocked off. He loves to do that with Gliscor, although I can set up on Gliscor with my Altaria, so I'll probably be looking to do that too. And yeah, general strategy: chip away, take hits and wall with Suicune and Zapdos, and then set up for a sweep with Mega Altaria. But maybe pick up kills along the way because, Pokemon like Jirachi, Pokemon like Heatran can put in work with their offensive presence, and because his Pokemon are generally slower. So yeah, should be a good match. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too, and I'll see you guys in the match. But until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.